Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 118 of the Cognitive Podcast. Hooey, how time does fly when you're having a good fun. I love your comments, and you can comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or on our group on Ravelry. Let me jump right from that to the people who did comment, and my warm thanks and other things. Beautiful Christina, look who is expecting. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Wow, that's a lot. I can't believe you even have the time to contact me or to make sweaters or anything else. Knit like the wind, my knitting sister. Knit like the wind, I say. How exciting. I imagine you're getting to that place where you just feel like a beached whale. And I hope you can hang in there. And I wish you a lot of luck and easy goings. And congratulations. And Minerva apparently is wishing you the same because you just grabbed the back of my chair and pulled it sideways. Turbo Gal gave us some really nice instructions around seaming the Wrapped in Tiny Chains cardigan, and I just included them. I just completely cut and pasted her instructions into the show notes. So thank you, Turbo Gal. And that's you I'm quoting. DDC Knits, thank you for some all-around kindness on my posts. I really have appreciated that. SalPal1, nice to hear your voice out there. Thank you so much for the support. And you're doing Whole30. And thank you. You were very gracious about my comments on the keto diet. I have a lot of respect for Whole30. To be honest, I think if I had been doing Whole30, I wouldn't need a keto diet. That I think Whole30 is just a sensible lifetime diet and a way of living as opposed to a temporary thing to lose weight. So I admire what you're doing and I wish you luck. You're raising hell, aren't you? Minerva's on my desk, knocking things off as I record. And there go the embroidery scissors. Will you be knocking anything else off? The mouse? I don't know, that's kind of big. Yeah, that ball of yarn, knock that baby off. Go on. You got it. Yeah, there goes that ball of yarn. Do not eat. Do not eat it. Do not eat it. We are at that 1-year anniversary of you eating the yarn, and you shouldn't do it. Anyway, SalPal1, thank you for the support for my keto adventure. And I wish you the best with Whole30. I have to say, yeah, I'm impressed. Whole30 is very rigorous and I think extraordinarily healthy. Knitting Hiker, just some hugs. It was good to see you in the list today. On to COVID, y'all know the drill. So the usual links are there for the tests and for the California electronic COVID card. How are we doing on the knitting, you may be wondering. I'm watching Minerva. She's just torturing me. There goes another ball of yarn off the desk. Yeah, you know what? You still can't eat it or play. Oh, you're playing with them. Oh, that's what we're doing here. We're taking them off the desk to make toys out of them. Now, I wouldn't mind, except I know you eat them, and you can't do that. You just got out of the hospital a year ago this month for that last trick, and we don't eat yarn, dingbat. Ugh. So meanwhile, what's on my hooks and needles? Well, nothing finished. In progress, the stash toss is set at 4 skeins in versus 15 skeins out, so we're very happy about that. Vestuary. I had a really good experience with my vest. I am now past the part where you knit in the round. and I'm going up the back. And every time I do this, I get really wackadoodle stitch tension, and I just say, well, it's a solid color, nobody's going to notice. So this time I really thought, is there any way I can address that? So I got about 20 rows into it, and then I started trying to address it. So I started looking at how I was doing my purling. When I do normal purling, I don't have any problem. I tend to purl continental, and sometimes I will knit backwards for the row instead of purling. So I looked at the knitting backwards. Now, as far as I can tell, I'm doing it the way I was taught, and I actually am doing a reverse purl. But you know what? I found out that I am putting the yarn over the needle in the wrong direction, and so I fixed it. Now, this to me means I am wrapping the yarn around the needle in the opposite direction, that is counterclockwise when I should be doing clockwise, to what I'm actually doing when I purl. This should be wrong, and yet now I'm getting perfectly even stitches that look exactly like the bottom of the sweater where I was knitting in the round. I can't figure this out. I've kind of bent my brain in half, but I'm really happy because I sorted that out, and now when I'm knitting back and forth, the tension looks exactly the same as when I am knitting in the round. Boy, that makes me happy. I would recommend learning to knit backwards. I think it's been really helpful. When you do any kind of thing like this, where you go from knitting in the round to just knitting side to side on part of a sweater, it is just really handy. On entrelac, it is just really handy. So if you can get a class in knitting backwards, purling backwards, I learned how to do it. It didn't stick with me. I learned how to do both at Stitches West in one of the marketplace classes they used to have for like an hour a pop. And I do recommend those. I'm not the kind of person who can sit through a 3-hour class for knitting. I'm just not going to do that. But those market classes were worth their weight in gold. So I do recommend that. No love yet on the lane splitter. It is on the side till I get through the vest. The Don't Know Yet had a good week. Let me see where we are. Rows 1 to 7 are completely sewn together and their ends are woven in. Row 8 is now clipped on to have its long seam attached so it will join the big hunk of the bottom of the blanket. Row 9, I am now seaming the short edges and I'm about halfway through that. And yes, I think that makes something like 152 blocks out of 361 joined on the big hunko blanket. So this is exciting. We're slowly reaching the halfway point. The Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery, nope. And the Reach for the Stars hat, boy, is that embarrassing. This is just a hat. I mean, I should have done this in like 2 days. No, it just keeps getting shoved to the side while I do something else. But you can see it in all its glory. There's about 4 inches of it. I need to get 9 inches of it before I start doing the decreases. But it is beautiful. That colorway, ooh la la, that is a glorious colorway. I really recommend it. This is Dizzy Blonde Studios. I'm using a DK, but I'm sure she did it in other sizes. And I do recommend it. The Lady Eleanor shawl, no love. What's really weird is no big crochet project. The Don't Know Yet blanket, although it was crocheted, I'm now just doing hand seaming. However, I am loving it. It is huge. The bottom part that is completed and assembled with all the ends woven in, it's so big I can't even just prop it on one of my yarn boxes under the desk. Won't fit. I have to roll it up and it's lying across my love seat. It's really great. It's already huge and it's not even halfway assembled. It's very, very cool. But no real crochet love, which is okay. I will get there. Of course, my favorite resources remain listed with their links in the show notes. And I am not spinning, so I'm just going to skip through Dizzy Blondes. And that's not true, by the way. I am still brushing Minerva every day and drop spindling a tiny poof of her fluff. I'm getting quite a lot of it, so this is pretty exciting. At any rate, the strategy, let's go on to that, shall we? And we're still in interpersonal strategies, and I think it was Sao Pal 1 who said she actually used Give with somebody. When you're giving someone advice about they are arguing with another person, the really important skills there, for my money, are fast. Be fair, don't apologize incorrectly, stay on topic, and be truthful. However, give is just genuinely good to use in all cases. Another one of those is the acronym THINK. This one's a little obvious, but again, remember that these are developed to teach people with zero skills, but they're good to know. It's good to ponder them. So the next interpersonal strategy set is based on the acronym THINK, and it's think, have empathy, interpret positively, notice, and use kindness. Okay, so think what's going on? What do you want out of this whole discussion? How did you get into it? What are your goals? Think about what is happening in the discussion. The H is have, for have empathy. So try to focus not only on what you want, but what the other person wants. What are they thinking? What are their goals? How do their goals differ from your goals? Because really all speech is an act of persuasion. So if you and they have different goals, you're looking at worst for a middle ground. At best, you want to win totally. I don't know. But the idea is you need to be aware of what the other person wants. You need to be empathic about what they think is going on in this discussion and what their goals are in it. I interpret what they do and say positively. Assume goodwill on their part. So if someone says something to you, it's easy to get paranoid or to jump to a negative conclusion. And yes, sometimes you're going to be right, it's true. But also sometimes I have found when someone is doing something unkind, if I explain to them that I believe in their positive goodwill, they will change their behavior abruptly right in the middle of the discussion. So I had a boss chew me out once years ago when I was working with the Mallard. He started chewing me out about, you did this wrong with a patient. And I looked at him, and he was wrong, and I knew it, but I didn't want to argue with him. And I just did the I interpret positively. And I looked at him and I said, I think your goodwill here may be misleading you as to what I did. I said, I think you're really, really positively invested in this patient and you're afraid I did something wrong. And so let me tell you that you and I are on the same page. We're trying to get to the same thing. His jaw dropped open. I mean, he knew perfectly well that this was a big stretch, that instead of saying to him, you're chewing me out and you have no right to, I instead put this really positive spin on, you want the best for the patient and I do too. And so we're really still on the same page, and here's why I did what I did. And he just backpedaled. He said, oh, okay, that's fine. That works. I think it's really, really key to hold the idea that sometimes, even if a person is coming on to you in a negative way, if you help them put the best possible spin on what they're saying, and if you try to interpret them as acting for the best, you're going to do better. The N is notice. Notice what they're doing. That before you can use that I, before you can interpret positively, you got to pay attention to the fact that they're saying something that you need to interpret, that they're making a statement you need to think about. You also want to be watching their body language. You want to make sure they're okay. And again, this goes back to have empathy. You want to keep them with you during the discussion. You want to make sure everybody is on the same page and kind of mirroring each other in behavior. You want to watch that they're not crossing their arms, backing away, looking troubled, furrowing their eyebrows, etc. Finally, the K, kindness. That's who you want to be. That whenever you're talking to people, you want to promote kindness. You want to talk out of a place of kindness. You want to show kindness. You want to, this goes back to give in some sense, you want to be easy in your manner. You want to be friendly. You want to keep reassuring them if you need to. You need to say, hey, it's okay. We're going to get to a resolution. It's okay. We don't agree, but we can reach resolution. We still really care about each other. We're going to work this out. You can actually say that. You can reassure another person. You can help them to feel okay about even conflictual interactions. But remember, the think is also just about any interaction. So again, you want to think about what's going on, about what your goals are, about what the other person wants. You want to have empathy. You want to remember that you're interested in why they are in the discussion, what they want, what they're trying to get. You want to interpret everything as positively as you can. Don't ascribe negative motivation to the other person, and don't go into your own negative. You want to notice what the other person is doing. You want to pay attention and respond to them appropriately. And finally, you want to use kindness when you talk to other people. When you take think and you stick it on the ACT skills, for those of you who keep track of that, what you're really working on, you're working on acceptance. In other words, in this moment, we are working together. I am here with you. It's also, I guess, working on the present. But I can tolerate what you say. I am not afraid of you. I am not panicked that I have to talk to you. You're also working on what we call diffusion. That is, you're being cognitively relaxed. You're not rigid in your viewpoint. You're taking in someone else's viewpoint. So really, you're kind of hitting two, arguably three, of the ACT skills of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is the model of psychological flexibility that I keep posted forever in the show notes because I think they are so important. And if you're forgetting that, what that is ACT are the 6 things that bring people to therapy. And in that diagram, those 6 things are in red. And in the center of the hexagon, you see the word in red, inflexibility. People come to therapy because they are inflexible in some respects. Often they are not living in the present. I'm just working my way around the hexagon here. Often they don't have firmed up values. They're directionless. They're not knowing what guides them. They're being reactive emotionally. Often they're stuck. They feel like they are not active. They can't get moving forward. Often they don't see themselves in a context that changes. They see themselves as locked in place and rigid. Often they have cognitive fusion. They have rigid thinking. They cannot accept different opinions. They cannot consider change. Often they are avoiding the experiences that would help them to change. Things like making reparation or appropriate apologies, expressing faith in someone else to help them and work with them. And often they're not living in the present. They're stuck in a negative past. That's why they're not trusting other people. Or they're predicting a negative future. That's why they're anxious. So that's how you get into therapy. And in therapy, hopefully, we replace those 6 situations with values that will lead you to psychological flexibility. So you begin in therapy to live in the moment, in the present. You begin to define yourself through a set of values that you use the past to formulate. You accept new experiences. You stay open to new learning that can improve your values. You show cognitive diffusion. Your thoughts are not locked. You are willing to take in new information and make change, which means you are a person, a self, living in context, that you may have to change your actions based on your situation, and that's where your values can guide you. And finally, with all these other things in place, you are using committed action. You are committed to change, to improvement, to being less rigid, and overall to psychological flexibility. So that is ACT therapy, in case you wondered. Okay, in the fluffy books at long last, I am finished with Introduction to American Deaf Culture. I've left it there, but it's going to go bye-bye. Because I finally took the last quiz on it, and I think that's it for it. It's been a great book. It's a very helpful introduction to deaf culture and deaf studies. I think there are parts of it that could be updated and replaced, but I got to tell you, considering the job Thomas Holcomb took on, I would say Professor Holcomb did pretty darn well. It's a pretty impressive book. In the meantime, nothing much, because I've been working on my deaf culture class. I haven't been reading new books. And at night I'm just listening to Jane Austen's Dragons, the series by Maria Grace. So nothing much in the fluffy books. Oh shoot, I continue stretching for about 5 minutes a day, and now I'm biking for about 5 minutes a day, and that's all. It's true. It's true. I'm secretly looking at e-bikes. I'd love to get a folding e-bike and tuck it in the back of my car and just run wild on the mountainsides here. But I'm enjoying the biking every day. Actually, it really gives me a good start to the day. It doesn't tire me out, but it has increased my energy and improved my sleep. So there. Something I really like, dictation technology. Now, there are a lot of ways to do this, but I have to tell you, now that I'm writing one-page papers and discussion comments in a class online using the app Canvas for the class, I'm really loving the dictation technology. Let's be honest. I can write a one-page paper really quickly, and I did that today for class. And I did it using Dragon Naturally Speaking on the Windows platform. Windows has a weird thing, Cortana, that also will do dictation. I have not really familiarized myself with it because, frankly, I just don't think it's up to the speed of either Dragon on the Windows platform or the regular dictation program in the Apple iOS platform. So I have to tell you, though, you can dictate an awful lot of stuff. I know on the iPhone, there are little microphones all over the place. So you can dictate text, you can dictate notes, you can dictate memos, you can dictate all sorts of stuff. And if you go into Word on the iOS platform, you can dictate straight into that by turning on the microphone. So when I'm on the iOS platform, I just use the program that is native to it. It is clunky to correct compared to Dragon Naturally Speaking in Windows. It is a bit clunky, but they both are. There really is not great dictation at this time, although let me tell you, it's a heck of a lot better than it was 10 years ago. It is a very slowly improving thing, but it really beats the snot out of trying to type everything, particularly if you're me and you're prone to getting repetitive stress injuries when you type. So I have to tell you, I have just whizzed through a lot of work this weekend. I read about 20 articles in my class, and I dictated notes on them, and then I dictated a bunch of comments on other people's discussions of their native cultures, and then I dictated an entire paper on the pros and cons of a medical technology for deafness, and then I dictated another paper summarizing a research article that I had to read. I could not have made it through this weekend without dictation technology. So if you are taking any classwork, I highly recommend it. But frankly, I've been dictating my text messages in iOS for years. I think I was onto that as soon as Siri began to get reliable. It dawned on me that I could dictate them. And my rule of thumb is dictate anywhere you can, that I do not type if I can help it. I do handwrite. I still enjoy handwriting notes, but handwriting is good because handwriting, we have shown in the research, helps us to commit ideas to memory. Typing does not, dictation does not. However, having said that, I am an aural, A-U-R-A-L, learner, which means when I need to remember something, I repeat it out loud because I will remember it when I hear it spoken. So dictation does help me in a lot of situations. So, I don't know what to say about that because I'm okay as a visual learner as well. But I think I'm more of an oral learner. I think that's 12 years of Catholic school, pragmatic memory training. Put a lid on it. Well, the tea tastings continue. I am just whipping through tea. I'm drinking 3 or 4 cups a day. So as you can imagine, I am doing a lot of herbal tea. There is an autumn herbal chai from Plum Deluxe that I just love. The big issue is I just stopped myself from spending $50 on the PD website to buy more tea because I love that autumn herbal chai and I want to get it because it ends at the end of February. However, there is no shortage of other tea there that I can try. Plum Deluxe, the thing they do that I love the best, no sugar. Second best, they feature oolong tea and they're really good in the way they blend it. Harney and Sons, their oolong, I don't even know if they even have it. But the only other oolongs I've had outside of Plum Deluxe, I don't know where I got them from, but they were dead flat. Okay, so I got to tell you, Plum Deluxe for the oolong, for my money. I'm debating doing their monthly tea club for a year because I've got so much tea right now. I really went crazy in the pre-Christmas hubbub, and I'm so glad I did. I got a lot of tea bargains at that time. And I'm just going to be working my way through that tea collection for like the next year. No great cooking this week. I haven't been doing much except working on my deaf culture class. which means we're at the blather. And boy, we're going fast. But here in the blather, let me tell you about the deaf culture class. Since I told you about motivation and my time management system, let me tell you that I am simply working hard on being proactive in deaf studies. Now, I'd already read the textbook last semester, so getting through the quizzes was just great. I think I got one question wrong in the quizzes on 4 chapters, so I'm good. But being proactive means lining up all the assignments and doing what is urgent and important right away. So we have a speaker in class and we have to do our response. I will go home and do it right away while I still remember. To me, that is urgent and important. And, you know, if she opens a quiz, like makes it available and we have a week to do it, I will treat it as urgent and important. I will do it right away because I don't want to get bottlenecked on the work. However, what's really going on is now that we are in flow, the urgent and important in that class are she publishes articles. And they're due, you have to write a paper on them or some sort of commentary. So reading the articles and taking notes, I'm treating as urgent and important. I'm prioritizing that. And of course going to the class when I have to be there. But the other thing is I'm looking what is important but not urgent. So I'm looking down the whole list of papers. And they're very easy. They're just one-pagers. So I've already done a few of them that are not due. One is not due till March 1st and one is not due till April 23rd. But I've just done them because I can do them. And by doing them, I'm now not worried about them, which means I'm free to do the slightly more complicated paper, which is based on going to 2 deaf events, which I have to work harder to plan because deaf events always occur on days where I am seeing patients. So now by doing those papers, it's much, much easier for me to get to the deaf events and to relax and go to those and not be as stressed for time. And again, that paper's not due till I think April 23rd. So I'm working on motivation for this class. It's not the most exciting class. It's okay. You know, I'm enjoying it. It's challenging because we're working on cultural studies, and a lot of people in the class are much younger than me. And they're not totally mature in studying culture. So there's a lot of anger and defensiveness and sort of accusatory or incendiary comments. And this is more about they're not really, they haven't reached the acceptance phase of acculturation. They're still in a sort of militaristic phase, and good for them. I think it's just a series of phases you go through. I can't remember. I'm supposed to know the 5 phases of cultural assimilation at this point, and I can't remember them. But essentially, you know, they're not going along with the mainstream culture. They're beginning to notice they don't fit it. And so they're in the second phase where they have dissonance and there's some anger growing, or the third phase where they're very rejecting of the mainstream and trying to immerse themselves culturally completely in their culture, and they may be expressing a lot of anger at the mainstream. Good for them. I think you kind of have to go through this. Well, I know you do. That's where the research is, and I totally agree with it, and I can see it in my own life. So it can be a little touchy in the class, and you just have to sort of allow for everybody to go through this stuff and develop at their own pace. So not my favorite place to be. The room can be very fraught with emotion, but I am enjoying the work at home. I am enjoying reading all the articles and taking notes and writing responses and such. So I'm trying to be proactive there. And you can see there's a picture of me working in my study and my research assistant's kind of hanging off the back there, taking a break together. And so I took a picture of us. You can also see the pup date that we need to talk about the dogs because they've had a busy week. First of all, I'm happy to report Queenie got spayed. Oh man, whoa. I was very worried because Queenie is just the world's happiest little soul. As Rudyard Kipling puts it, she's a friend to all mankind. And she wasn't going to enjoy spaying, and she didn't. That my husband picked her up from the vet, and he was very worried because she didn't recognize him, and she was just totally dissociated. He had to lift her and carry her from the vet to the car. She wouldn't walk. He carried her into the house, and she just stood there with her legs braced, staring at the floor in this big cone. So my poor happy girl, she laid on the floor for like 5 hours, just wrapped in her own personal haze of misery and drugs. They let her go a little too soon, is what I would say. She really wasn't recovered at that point. So I finally sat down after I finished with my patients. This was last Thursday. I sat down on the floor with her and I held her head through the cone, petting her face because she was really upset that she couldn't use her face to press against anybody. So I pressed my hands inside the cone around her head and I kissed her muzzle and I let her kiss me. And I just talked to her and said, it's okay. You're with us. You're going to be okay. You're at home. And she had no idea what I was doing. But she started moaning because she just needed comfort. She had no idea who I was. I'm not kidding you. This dog was high. So she followed me into my study and she laid down on the floor. And it was very funny because about 8:30 that night, I was working away and I heard a scrape and I turned around and she had lifted her head and she was staring at me intently. And I realized she was waking up and she was looking at me and she was going, is that you? I know you. And I said, yeah, it's me. It's okay. You're home. And she was so happy. She leapt to her feet and smiled at me. Next day, totally normal. She's out in the backyard running around with the cone like she's worn it all her life, except for that part in the late afternoon where she managed to get it off. She coerced Captain into helping her, and I think together they pulled it off and then they chewed it to small bite-sized bits. She's now got a new, slightly less awkward, smaller cone, and I thought she wouldn't need it until this morning when I walked out, found her in a crate, lying there, doing her best to rip away at her incision, and she couldn't reach it, thank goodness, because of the cone. So we'll be wearing that cone for a while. Stitches are on the inside, so as long as she doesn't chew too much, she can't do too much damage, but I think she's in the phase of itching as she heals. But she is her happy self. Meanwhile, Captain has discoid lupus, and we took her back for her check-in with the vet, and the vet was so-so about how the meds are working for her. She didn't give her steroids, so we don't have a lot of healing. And her nose is a bit crusty, but we're keeping her indoors. The biggest problem is we put ointment on her nose and she licks it right off. And the vet said, well, in high amounts it's toxic. So if we don't see improvement in another 2 months, we're going to do quick steroids. I actually wish we would just do the steroids now and give the nose a chance to heal. Even so, Captain's fine. Her behavior is fine. She's not showing side effects or problems, any symptoms with the lupus. So I take her out to the car to go to the vet today. Blankets freaks out. Blankets is like, you're taking my little sister. This can't happen. So Blankets gets in the car with us. So I took them both to the vet, and you can see a picture of them riding in the car together. If you know Captain, when you look at that picture, you can see that Captain is stressed. Her tongue's way out, and the edge is kind of dark pink. But you can see Blankets is perfectly calm. Blankets is having a nice ride in the car. And Blankets came in, and I explained to the vet that Blankets is here as the emotional support dog for Captain. Turns out Captain loves the vet. I didn't know this. Vet comes in, Captain immediately starts sucking up to her and then starts begging for tummy rubs. And I said to the vet, have you been seducing my dog? And she laughed and she said, I love this dog. She said, I would take this dog home. This is like the greatest dog. And she said, why are your dogs so nice? These are really big dogs, but they're really well-mannered and kind. And I laughed and I said, well, you don't see them at home. But anyway, we had a great time at the vet. I was there about 2 hours because I sat down with one of the techs and we updated all our records on both sides. So I sent them everything on Queenie, who got spayed by a different vet, a more local vet, because I didn't want her to do a long trip with a wound. And I don't like that local vet as much, frankly. But anyway, so I said to them, I want to transfer Queenie's records up here. So we sat doing electronic exchanges. We figured out everything that each of us did not have about my dogs and my cat Minerva. And then we just did this electronic exchange. So my dog records are all updated. I store them on my Remarkable tablet. And it's so great because there's an app from the tablet to my phone and my other tablets. So it's so great because when I go into the vet's office, I just go into the Remarkable app and I just go into their file and I pull up everybody's records and I can mail them and all that other good stuff. So that went really well. And you can see a picture of both my dog girls lying on the floor in the exam room, just being together. The hub stayed. He's doing fine. no real news there, and that's a kind of no news is good news thing. He's just in the process of getting his teeth cleaned in slow motion, and hopefully I'm going to go next after he gets that done. And then we're both going to work on repairs, we hope. But he is doing just fine, and that's the really nice thing, that there's no news, and no news is good news. I still have on the calendar the Grand Canyon and Sunnybank. I doubt it, frankly, because of all the costs this year. However, I think the sadness, too, is I'm not going to Stitches West. I really would like to. I'd like to get up to the one in Sacramento. I'd like to see it in the new venue. And I'm pretty sure I could flop in someone else's suite. I'm just saying, you know who you are. But right now, I'm not going to do the drive, and I'm not going to foot the plane fare for now. I kind of like that part of Sacramento. It's not always the safest part, but the airport is actually pretty close to the convention center, if I remember correctly. And so I really want to get up there. And I'm just sorry it's not going to be this year, but it's not. We've got to financially realign ourselves. We're doing fine, but, it's going to take a little bit of work, and it's a slow thing, and I don't want to keep adding to the trusty American Express card. Finally, Minerva gets the last word. Well, it's been a year since Minerva ate string and tried to kill herself. And I realized this because I saw a picture that I reproduced in the show notes. And this is from almost exactly a year ago. And it is, my son had a little heart that he made out of red construction paper, and he taped it on the outside of my study window. And one day I turned around and Minerva was trying to pat it through the glass. He had taped it on the outside. And I snapped what I think is one of the best cat pictures I've ever seen of her, or of any cat. But it's a great picture of her, and she's trying to pat the heart. And she's sitting on the back of my love seat by my books trying to do this, sitting on the window ledge. If you look carefully, you can see her tummy has been shaved. This is her in recovery from her experience, I think it was in January or February of 22, where she ate string and had major surgery that we're still paying for, and I'm happy about that because I'm so glad she's still with us. She's turned into a magnificent, if occasionally bitey and temperamental cat. So there is Minerva in her recovery phase. So it's been 1 year since, and below it I gave Captain equal time. Captain likes to come in and lie on that same couch and just be companionable with me in the evening while I'm in the study. So Captain won't come in during the day. But at night, after I'm finished with patients, Captain will often come in and lie there with that same dazed expression you can see in the photo on my couch. So having said all this, I think we're at the end of another episode. I know these are going fast right now, but very little is happening because I'm working so hard on the deaf culture class. But even so, it's fairly easy as classes go. Lucky for me. So, everybody remember, we are a community that when we take care of everyone, we do better individually. So this means in terms of illness and the pandemic and everything else, socially distance where you can, wear your mask if you're in too close with other people, wash your hands, which you should have been doing before the pandemic, and get all your shots. Most of all, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.